feels like the economy is in free fall and you need to save every cent, choosing to freewheel your car down a hill isn't necessarily going to save you any money. My next guest says that it's a common fuel-saving misconception. Well, let's bust this and other myths and find out how we can get more kilometers out of less liters. Ciro De Siena is a motoring journalist and a bit of a petrol head. Ciro, thanks for joining us. I do that free fall thing the whole time, thinking that I'm doing a brilliant budget job.
So it is a common misconception, as you've said. I think where the misconception comes from is that the revs climb, right? So let's say you leave the car in a gear. The revs will climb while you're rolling down the hill. And I think people think, oh no, my engine is speeding up, I must be using more fuel. But what's actually happening is when you're in gear and you're rolling downhill, yes, the engine is turning, but the road is actually turning the engine, and the injectors actually stop injecting petrol or diesel into the engine. So what you need to do basically is when you're rolling, you need to put it in a higher gear. You sort of feel it out, you get a feel for these things, but basically the easiest way to say is just to put it in a higher gear as possible, 6, 5, 4, somewhere there, and let the engine sort of hold up the car almost. You'll actually feel the car slowing down a little bit, and that means that you're using no fuel at that point in time.
Ciro, what's chomping fuel? Is it the stop-start traffic situation on the way home, or is it driving fast on the highway?
So, funnily enough, your car is actually most efficient on the highway. Where it's least efficient is, like you say, in stop-start traffic. So, funnily enough, the enemy of fuel consumption is actually deceleration or braking. And when people talk about hypermiling, they talk about DWB, which stands for driving without brakes. Now, the reason for that is that your car is working, your engine is working the hardest under acceleration. So what you want to try to avoid doing is slowing down so that you have to accelerate again. So the idea is to keep momentum. It's to drive in a way where you're anticipating what the traffic's doing, and you're trying to keep momentum. You're trying to keep the car moving so that you don't have to accelerate again to get back up to speed. So funnily enough, if you can drive in such a way that you don't need the brake pedal, then you're actually doing a good job of saving fuel in stop-start traffic. On the highway, there's nothing much you can do. You've got to keep the car at 120 k's an hour. But funnily enough, that's when engines actually aren't working too hard and they're running quite efficiently at that point.
Ciro, what's cheaper, your windows open or the air conditioner on?
At lower speeds, windows open is better, but at higher speeds, what you're doing by opening the windows is you're creating more drag on the car, which means that the car has to work harder to push through the air, which means that you're using more fuel. So this is what frustrates me when I'm in an Uber car on the highway and the driver has all the windows down, because he thinks or she thinks that you're saving fuel, but you're just not. So I would say under 40 kilometers an hour, windows down, but over 40, 60 up, and especially at highway speed, then windows definitely closed.
Before I let you go, Ciro, have you got any other tips for a repeat offender here?
So basic tips for keeping your car in the best fuel efficient state it can be: keep it well maintained, and make sure that one of the big ones that I think people don't check as often as they should is tire pressures. You really want to keep the tire pressures optimal. So if you open the driver's door, on the sort of where the door would close, there's a little sticker there, and that gives you the tire pressures for when the car is not loaded, and importantly for when the car is loaded. So if you full up with people and luggage, you actually do need to change the tire pressures. What this does is it makes sure that the rolling resistance of the tire is optimal, and that makes sure that the car doesn't have to work as hard to push the engine rather, down the road. So tire pressure, I would say once a month, and that will make quite a big saving. And also unnecessary weight. If for whatever reason, I don't know, you're carrying a large toolbox around in the car, any unnecessary weight needs to go, and that'll help you save a bit of fuel as well.
All right, thank you so much to Ciro De Siena. Please give me a tutorial. Let's go out and save some money. Well, up next.